Alright, this is Gran Turismo 4, one of the best racing games in my opinion for the PlayStation. First things first, I'm going to go into the options here and show you a few neat features about this game. One is that it supports 16:9, but even cooler, as you can see, progressive scan. We got 480p and 1080i. This game actually supports high definition. With the PlayStation 2, you'd need the component cables for it. A lot of people don't even realize the PlayStation 2 does support high definition. There's not a lot of games that use it. This is one of them. So here's the main menu. Here's where you do most of the things in your career, in the Gran Turismo mode. You start off with $10,000, very similar to the other Gran Turismo games. So you have to start off with a used car. So there you can look through the papers and find used cars. There's one I couldn't afford, Honda NSX or Acura NSX, depending on where you live. And but you'll start off with the basic car, Honda Civic or an old Corolla. One thing I've always loved in the Gran Turismo series is just the sheer number of cars. Gran Turismo on the PlayStation pretty much broke a record for the amount of real manufacturers that it had, and then 2 came along and they just quadrupled the number of cars in it. Here in Gran Turismo 4, they say there's 500 cars. Jaguar XKR, you gotta have it in British Racing Green, am I right? But you name a car company and it's probably in this game. All different cars from all over the world. And they added a lot of sort of surprise cars in Gran Turismo 4, like the Buick Grand National GNX, and there's even a DeLorean in the game. So, if you have a racing game with a DeLorean in it, they pretty much got every car you can imagine in there. And then you get into souping them up. You can buy all your modifications, engine mods, transmissions, suspension. You can really do the cars up in this game. Also, like the other Gran Turismo games, you're gonna have to get your license. You get your racing license by going through a series of tests, and they might be just a certain corner of a racetrack, braking test, acceleration tests. Sometimes it's like a timed lap, all different tests, and they put you in a different car for each test. So you might do something in a 80 horsepower front wheel drive car, and then the next test will be the same part of the track, but you're doing it in 500 horsepower sports car. And so you really got to learn how to adjust for your speed when it comes to braking and stuff. There's a lot of tracks in this game. Some of them you will recognize, such as Laguna Seca here. Track, of course, that's in the United States, but it's famous for this one corner here they call the corkscrew, where you come down, you got a left and then a right. I used to always spin out in Gran Turismo 2 in that corner, but yeah, I've mastered it now, I guess. Another track you're going to recognize, the Nürburgring in Germany. The controls are similar to Gran Turismo 2. They've been modified a little bit. You do notice the dip more when you hit the brakes, kind of indicating the weight transfer to the front tires. You'll see a sort of a little bar graph to the left of the tachometer showing how much throttle you're actually giving on the controller, and same with the brakes on the red graph to the right of the speedometer. The game also takes advantage of the pressure-sensitive buttons on the PlayStation 2. Most people don't even realize those buttons are actually pressure-sensitive. They're not just you're hitting them or not. They'll know how hard you're hitting them. And if you press it softly, you'll only actually give half throttle, and you'll see that on that graph. And some of the tracks in this game are actually fictional. This is one of them. When the original Gran Turismo came out, they made a set of tracks in that game where they only had a few real tracks, and most of the tracks were made up. And those fictional tracks have stayed with the Gran Turismo series. A few things I didn't mention are the modifications you can do to the car. I showed buying the parts, and buying the parts is only half the battle, because when you buy the parts you can also adjust them, and you can go into the suspension, for example. You can adjust the caster, the camber, the toe-in, the spring rate, the damper rate, rebound rate, weight balance, brake balance. you can really do a lot of adjustments in this game. So you can almost make your car's handle for a specific track, or if you want to drift, or if you want to do just straight up grip. If you want to do drag racing, you can do drag racing in this game, just to test, power mods. There's also a lot of driver aid settings. You can adjust things like the traction control and the stability control. So if you want more of an arcade-ish feel, you can have some of those driver aids on. A few other things they added to this game is some new camera angles. In Gran Turismo, it always, I thought, kind of lacked camera angles. You really only had two. Your typical nose camera and your, external camera. I usually play with the nose camera in racing games, and I've mentioned that before, as I actually find it easier to control. Though another view they added in this one is actually a sort of like on the roof view where you still see the hood. And that one works pretty good too. I like that view in this game. So they did add one extra view. They probably could have added more, but one other thing they did actually I should mention is in the mods. They did add nitrous oxide in this one. And it's not like in Fast and the Furious Need for Speed Racer Underground where you tap a button and you get this 5-second burst where you go into a warp tunnel and you go through time and everything starts glowing in the dark. It's very realistic in this game, as you would expect. Here we have some rally racing. I'm awful at the rally racing. But you can show off some of the four-wheel drive cars in here. Everything you'd expect, Mitsubishi Evolution, Subaru, WRX STI, the Focus and the Escort. I'm in the Escort rally car there. And here's another cool feature they added to Gran Turismo 4. This is the photo mode. In the photo mode, you can put your car in a scenic location. You can move the car around, you can move the camera around. Some pretty advanced settings. You can go in and change like the lenses. You can change the aperture size or the depth of field if you want the car to be in focus, but the background or foreground to be blurred. And then what it does is it renders that image, and it makes a really high quality version of that image. You can see the car almost looks realistic. And then you can stick in your USB thumb drive or plug in a printer, and you can actually print those pictures or save them onto a USB jump drive. So there you go, is Gran Turismo 4. Pretty much a must-have if you have a PlayStation 2 and you like racing games. When Gran Turismo came out on the PlayStation, there's really nothing like it. Having a semi-realistic simulation racing game on a console, and it's really just evolved. More and more cars, and the graphics got better. And this is the pinnacle of PlayStation 2 graphics. You can use this with the steering wheel. They have some really nice Logitech Gran Turismo 4 steering wheels with gated shifters and force feedback. It supports high definition. Like I said, one of the few games on the PlayStation to support high definition. Really only a few complaints with this game. Common complaints is that there's no damage. It really does focus more on the tracks and how to take the corners than having the damage in it. But if you're in for a semi-realistic simulator, definitely pick this one up.